Hi, everybody. This is Saad. Back in 2003, I had published an article with one of my former doctoral students where we looked at some evolutionary principles that explain gift giving. And in one of the studies, we looked at sex differences in gift giving, specifically sex differences in the motives that men and women use when they give gifts to one another. And we had broken up the motives into two classes: tactical motives and situational motives. So tactical motives would be, I give her a gift because I'm trying to seduce her. So it's a tactical reason. It's a motive that has an ulterior, well, reason or ulterior motive. Situational would be, I gave him or her a gift because it's their birthday. So the situation demands it. And so we had several items that captured tactical motives, several items that captured situational motives, and then the question was to ask men and women to evaluate the extent to which they use tactical versus situational motives to when they're offering a gift to their romantic partner. And perhaps not surprising to you, although you may not know, of course, the evolutionary reasons, but you are an evolutionary being, so you navigate through the world, so you undoubtedly know this. Men scored much higher on tactical motives, meaning that they use the courtship ritual or the gift-giving ritual as part of the courtship process, and therefore it is not surprising that they would score much higher on the tactical motives than would women. So that first part is probably one that you could have guessed a priori. Although, of course, we, as I said, offered the evolutionary explanations for why that happens. The second part, though, is a lot more subtle and demonstrates the explanatory power that comes with understanding evolutionary-based thinking. So now we ask men and women to tell us why they think the other sex gives them gifts. So you ask men, so when, tell us how frequently you think that women give you gifts for those tactical reasons or motives and situational motives. And we did the same for women. Now here we get an incredible difference. One of the two sexes is much more likely to read the situation well, and the other one is completely oblivious. Which one do you think it is? I actually just discussed this in a lecture that I gave in class, and the students were having a hard time coming up with an answer. So let me ask you, which of the two sexes do you think is better able at engaging in cross-sex mind reading? Anything? Well, of course, women completely understood that the reasons why they give gifts to men are very different than the reasons why men give them gifts. In other words, they were perfectly well calibrated in understanding the dynamics of the situation. Men, on the other hand, were completely and utterly oblivious. They thought that the reasons why they give gifts to women is the same set of reasons as to why women give them gifts. So now the answer is, why is one sex so adept at reading the situation in this case and the other one isn't? And of course, again, it turns to the sex-specific evolutionary reasons as to why women would have evolved the capacity to engage in theory of mind here when it comes to men's motives, and not when men don't have the reason to have theory of mind, right? So it's exactly... So of course, just to finish that point, if every woman were to be persuaded, a guy comes up to her and says, "Here's a flower, I'll love you forever, now let's go behind the shed and have some really passionate sex," and she says, "Oh sure, okay, I believe you, I'm sure there are no ulterior motives here, you must be totally honest," she would be losing very quickly her evolutionary interest to pick an optimal male. On the other hand, there are very limited, if not minimal, costs for men to have evolved as good mind reading as women, because the costs that they bear for making a suboptimal choice, mate choice, are not the same. And therefore, it's not that men are generally oblivious and women are generally adept at reading all social situations. Is that in some cases men perform better on tasks. In other cases, there are no differences between the sexes. In other cases, women perform better in tasks. And if you want to understand those patterns of differences and similarities, there is no other game in town other than evolutionary thinking. That's what explains sexual dimorphism. And just to link it to another example where you get this, cross-sex mind reading errors, Marty Hazelton, who's been a guest on my show, and David Buss, who's also been a guest on my show, he was her former doctoral supervisor, wrote a paper many years ago, a fantastic paper on error management theory. The idea that there are evolutionary reasons why certain patterns of errors in the reading of the intentions of others manifest themselves in the way they do. So, for example, when a woman and a man cross one another on the street as strangers, if a woman smiles at him, a very innocent smile, men are much more likely to overestimate the likelihood that this means that she is sexually interested in them. The pattern of, error reading doesn't happen the same way the other way around, right? So if a man smiles at a woman, it's not, she goes, oh my God, he wants to have sex with me right away, and he meant something completely innocent. And again, so the pattern by which we talk in different modalities past one another, that itself is prone to an evolutionary analysis. So there you have it, folks. That's the kind of stuff I, engage in all the time in my research, in my teaching. I hope that you all take some interest in evolutionary thinking. It truly is the singular most powerful explanatory framework to explain human behavior. It could be nothing else. That's why I refer to those who denigrate evolutionary psychology as flat earthers of the human mind. Cheers, everybody.